Well, hi everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Welcome to tonight's show on my YouTube channel. It is coming up on 7:15 Eastern Time, and the weather across the U.S. is relatively quiet at the moment, but we do have prospects for the next storm system that's going to be impacting California. Already is bringing some rain to the coast, and we're going to see that storm make its way across the southern tier and through the southwest to the Gulf, the western Gulf states, straddle the Gulf Coast, and then make a turn and off the southeast coast of the U.S. And we're going to examine what weather models, if you've been have done today. If you've been following this, and a number of you have over the last several days, we have been going through the various differences in the weather models in what is overall a rather suppressive pattern for the northeastern part of the United States in particular. It is not the type of upper air, ideally, that you would see trying to bring a storm up the East Coast. Though you've got a split flow with the jet stream, which if you're too deep into the cold air, you're going to have a problem. If you're not deep enough into the cold air, you're going to have a problem one way or the other, depending on whether you're talking rain or snow. So we're going to try to break it all down and take a look at where the risk areas are for this, which at the moment I think appear to be in the south. There are a few quirks in some of the model runs today that lead to some odd outcomes in some places. So we'll get it going. We're at the point now, by the way, we're at Tuesday here, and we're talking about something that's going to be happening during the weekend in the south, and then late weekend, early next week for areas a bit further to the north. So we're still kind of in that evolution stage in terms of how the models are handling this, and I thought it might be okay to just kind of come out with a bit of a risk area. Let me just, at this point, we'll just take care of a little bit of business off the top. First off, welcome to folks that are watching from the SNS Chase and Storm Chasing page for South Central Pennsylvania and North Central Maryland primarily. Glad to have you on board watching the live stream. Also, those of you who are from Angry Ben's Angry Weather page on Facebook. Welcome to you as well. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Stormwatch page. Good to have you on board tonight. And for my weather page on Facebook, meteorologist Joe Chaffee. So we're getting everybody into one place for one live stream. Let me also let you know that for those of you who do live in the New York City, Long Island, New Jersey area, Connecticut also, Southern Connecticut, Hudson Valley included in that. I'm going to put a link up. I have a free app. It's on Google Play, so you got to have an Android device to use this, but it is free, and download it and install it on your phone. And also, folks from my app are also watching, so welcome aboard. You're able to watch the live streams and replays on the app as well, and it's absolutely free. There will be an iPhone version of this as soon as Apple gives me the approval. We're still waiting for it, but hopefully any day now we will have that. And as soon as that comes out, we'll share the link with you. And for those of you who might be interested in a more expanded weather experience on a day-to-day basis, you can consider joining my subscription site on the Patreon platform. It's just $2 a month. And you're getting weather posts all day long. You're getting exclusive videos just for Patreon members. We did one this morning, and we're likely to do one again tomorrow morning. So thanks again for everybody for being here tonight. Let's roll along, and first let's take care of a little bit of short-range weather issues that are going on tonight. It's nothing major at all, but we do have a bit of a peppering of winter weather advisories across Kentucky, a small portion of southern Illinois, southern West Virginia, western Virginia, and westernmost North Carolina. We have a disturbance that is moving through, and if you have been on any kind of weather page over the last week or two. A lot of folks that are into the long range were talking about storm signals for this week, and one of them was for around this date. Well, the disturbance that's producing that wound up being very weak, and you're seeing it here sitting in just producing this small area of winter weather advisories they're getting some light snows. We'll check out the radar in a second. We also have a small area of winter weather advisories that have gone up for parts of northwesternmost Nevada and northeastern California, and that's in relation to the system that is coming in into the west, into California, that eventually will be that southern storm. One thing that we looked at last night, I want to look at it again today, the WPC, the Weather Prediction Center, because this weather system is for the weekend into early next week, and it's the only system that's really on the table, we can look at least at what their 7-day precip view is, because this really kind of covers everything with this storm in terms of moisture. And indeed, it's very wet when it moves through Texas. You're seeing some areas forecasting 3 or more inches of rain in northeast Texas, and the purple area, which would be the 1.5 inch of liquid line, goes up into northern Tennessee and straddles just north of the North Carolina-Virginia border. The half-inch line yesterday was actually, I was surprised to see it as far north as it was. It's actually, today, they kind of nudged it a bit to the south. So they only have that half-inch line just offshore of southern New Jersey, and then running down into southern Delaware. So you can kind of get the idea that, at least from the standpoint of what the weather prediction people are thinking with this storm system, that we're going to wind up seeing this being suppressed more to the south. And again, I think judging from the upper air, you kind of have to go with that. I know this, I've seen some of people post, well, the usual the usual lines that come out with this is like, well, the models are all over the place. The models are always all over the place, okay? That's not, that the takeaway, when we're trying to kind of establish the takeaway of how you look at weather and how it evolves, so that you can sort of handle the models, have a better approach to them. They don't become an emotional roller coaster. And so I try to paint this picture so you can recognize what the pattern is. The pattern is suggestive that you're going to have that southern part of the jet stream kind of pushed pretty far to the south, and it's going to have a tough time lifting any southern feature to lift it up northward up the eastern seaboard. I've said that pretty much for the last 3 days, and I'm saying that again tonight. There are a few different things that are happening that I think we need to be addressed as possibilities. But with respect to, coming up with forecasts, it's so pointless to jump from model run to model run because of the fact that you've got this, these huge changes that sometimes occur. You can't be changing your forecast every 5 minutes. It doesn't do the folks at home any good to see your forecast changing all the time. So with that in mind, let's start off with the surface map for tonight, which is really not showing all that much. Hang on, I just wanted to, let me just pop this link back up. I just didn't put the Patreon link, so I just wanted to make sure you guys have it there. Oh, come on, guys, really? There we go. So now at least I can see you folks on the chat board. Okay, so let's run out to the surface map tonight, which when we widen it out a little bit, you probably look really close. The numbers are kind of small, but temperatures are in the 20s in a lot of areas. The whole country is pretty much covered in high pressure, cold high pressure in the east, and we're starting to see the beginnings of what will probably be the next cold front coming down from Canada that's going to reinforce that cold air for Friday and the weekend, and basically set the table for areas in the south that are going to have to deal with this storm off the California coast, which, by the way, is right there. And there's the low. This is how it's plotted on the surface map with that huge occluded front that whips from the low all the way around and then southward down to off the coast of Southern California. So that big frontal system is just going to sweep its way eastward. And on the satellite, on the Pacific satellite tonight, you can see the giant swirl that is off the coast of Southern California that is coming inland. You're starting to get the first waves of precipitation getting near the coastline and pushing a bit inland. And also, if you look up in over the Aleutians, you've got a pretty big storm sitting there, kind of driving everything. The big driver is that deep low that is running up toward the Aleutian Islands. And of course, except for the system coming into the west, we're really not seeing all that much in terms of weather. Now tonight, where we have the winter weather advisories, we've got this sort of peppering of light snow shower activity on the radar in parts of West Virginia. I'm imagining that most of the areas you could wind up with the ground getting whitened up or maybe a coating to an inch or so. It really shouldn't amount to too much more than that. And as we go to the west, you're starting to see with that occluded front sweeping inland, this fairly large area of rain is coming ashore. You're going to see the heaviest rains from this fall up and down the California coastline, and amounts are going to lessen as you go inland. So at least for the areas that we're dealing with fires, they're getting, they got some significant rains recently with the systems in the last week and a half or so. Now you're going to get some more with what's coming inland from that Pacific storm. And the Northwest is dry. The Northern Rockies, not too much going on. Little light snow up in parts of North Dakota, and that really is about it when it comes to the radar view. So the short range, the current weather is fairly quiet. We don't have, except for those advisories, we don't have any severe weather tonight, so systems are remaining weak. So let me jump to the system for the weekend. And what I've done is I've kind of outlined what I think at the moment is the risk for heavy snow. And by the way, I didn't feel comfortable at all going for extending the area of snow in general. Rather than focus on that, I just wanted to kind of concentrate on the areas where I think there's a potential for some heavy snow. And we're talking, half a foot to a foot, or maybe even more than that. Depending on the dynamics and all that moisture, I think it's certainly possible that areas in the red box could see a foot or more of snow, particularly in some of the mountains. And that includes a portion of northeastern Georgia, northwestern South Carolina, western North Carolina, west of Greensboro and Charlotte, and then also into southwest Virginia. Roanoke, Lynchburg, those cities, I think possible that you could see some heavy snows out of this. And a storm in early December in that part of the U.S. Is a little unusual, so I think the threshold for record-breaking snow is pretty low. And then in the area where I have a moderate snow risk, some of these areas could wind up with a couple of inches, some of the areas could get a little less, some areas could get a bit more. I just kind of wanted a broad brush where I thought the best chances were for some accumulating snow from this particular storm. And this is, again, a very early call. I'll probably do some adjusting, but at least you have some idea of where my head is at when it comes to this particular system. So let's take a look at the NAM. I'm going to start with the NAM model. Just want to quickly talk about those snow showers that are in the Ohio Valley. You're getting a low that's going to develop off the East Coast, well offshore, but there's an upper air trough that's swinging through that actually, from the standpoint of the upper air trough, it's a pretty solid-looking trough, but it's never been really able to get its energy together with the surface low until it's much further out to the east. Nonetheless, between the trough and kind of an arm of moisture that rotates back around the surface low, there's a little bit of snow that actually develops over parts of South Jersey tomorrow. That would be, as far as my area is concerned, that's as close as any risk is going to come from this particular system. And then it's going to move out to the east. And now if you take a look up near the Great Lakes, you start to see snow showers breaking out. That is the next cold front that's going to come through the east Thursday night. Almost looks like a line of a snow squall line here Thursday evening from upstate New York into northwest PA, northeast Ohio. That really brings in a reinforcing surge of cold air. That squall line kind of falls apart, but the bottom line is that cold air with that 1037 high that you see is going to be the main ingredient for the cold air to get down into the southern areas of the U.S. So we'll bring up the GFS, and I'm hoping that the new parallel GFS is going to be out tonight. The earlier run today kind of stopped at about day 6, which was enough for us to look at, but the new run has been kind of sitting in pending mode for the last hour and a half, and it hasn't updated yet. So we'll see if we do have it eventually, because that was the one model today really, and the Canadian in its own squirrely way, that was the one model that really had sort of a different upper air to explore. Okay, so there's your cold front moves offshore. Now, of course, you've got this California low coming in, and you begin to see low pressure developing in South Texas here. This is Friday night. Rain up into Oklahoma and Arkansas, some freezing rain and sleet on the northern fringe of that, as that high is up in Iowa. One of the things that I want to be careful of with the current GFS is the fact that it hasn't been able to really handle cold air very well. There's been a number of instances going back to last year where the model just had rain in areas where it wound up being either freezing precip or frozen precip. So I want to watch that northern fringe there a bit carefully and not necessarily believe in what the GFS has with this. And in fact, I'll switch back to the NAM in a moment. And in fact, I'll do it now. If we switch back to the NAM model, which I think basically handles the cold air a lot better, it does have a much wider area of snow showing up for North Texas, into Oklahoma, northern Arkansas, southern Missouri. It's got more precip a bit further to the north, which I think is kind of interesting. Below the NAM, we can't see obviously past 84 hours, but this I think will be a very good situation to use the NAM going forward once the system reaches the East Coast. As I've said many times, the NAM is kind of one of my favorite models to look at in the short range. But there's the difference with the GFS. A little, not too shabby with how where it has the northern fringe of precip. I just don't think it's weighing the importance of that cold high to the north that's going to be pressing in. So I think you're going to see cold air drain southward into Oklahoma and into Arkansas much more efficiently than what the NAM's going to have the better view of this. I'm just trying to make the picture a little bit wider here. And these maps, by the way, are, of course, courtesy of Tropical Tidbits, our go-to website, tropicaltidbits.com. So not really that much changed with the operational runs today and overnight with the GFS. It still kind of has this low straddling right along the immediate Gulf Coast. You've got a high that winds up getting into Pennsylvania, another high center up in Wisconsin. Watch what's going on in New England, because your flow is coming from the northwest. If you see that area of light snow in southeastern Canada, how it moves from northwest to southeast, it's telling you that the upper air winds there are from the northwest. And if you have upper air winds from the northwest in New England with a storm like this approaching, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You need enough of a northwest flow to kind of anchor in cold air. At the same time, if you overdo it, you're going to wind up with the westerlies, the northwesterly winds aloft, or the westerly winds. They're going to be too far to the south, and that will inhibit a system that's trying to move northward. It's going to hit those upper air winds from the northwest or west, and it's going to get pushed to the east. And this is the problem that the models have here, is with the fact that this northern jet has been very persistent. But if we follow the GFS from this afternoon, you can see where it has some heavy frozen and freezing precip. Again, I think the cold area here is going to be more important. So you're going to see a much larger area of snow and sleet and freezing rain extending down probably into northern Georgia. That low moves to the Carolina coast, and now here's where it's fighting that northwest flow that's in Canada, and in southeastern Canada and over New England. The surface low tries to move northward, and then it hits those winds, and what happens? It kind of hesitates a bit and then moves out to the east. It also takes very long for this to happen, by the way. If you notice, this is the surface low on Sunday. It takes almost 2 days, and it's still sitting off the North Carolina coast come Tuesday morning. So some areas in western North Carolina, interior southwestern Virginia, could possibly see a long duration of frozen or freezing precipitation. Certainly the GFS is hinting at this. And then finally you get this wrapped up surface low that just moves pretty much straight to the east. I don't know if this is the final solution to all of this, by the way. I think we could still certainly have time to see the models maneuver around a bit. And there is, there is definite room for error. But now I'm going to just bring up the upper air. I'm going to start with Saturday afternoon. And I'm just going to bring our friendly paint box up. Always useful in these situations to be able to illustrate what is happening. And okay, so there you go. So here's what the upper air is. This is at Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. And you have a very, very strong, which you wouldn't be too surprised to see it at this point because it's early in the game. But, here's your southern stream trough. And at the same time, you've got this another short wave up here in the Dakotas. Okay, right there. Let me just get the red in. Sorry about that. A little sloppy. And this strong, almost like a ruler, strong northwest winds. Okay. Here your winds are trying to back up more southwesterly. You've got northerly winds behind the trough. And this is the setup of the jet stream come Saturday afternoon. So at this point, you're starting to see your surface low center moving across the lower part of the Gulf states. That northern jet is pressed in pretty far to the south. I mean, that's really a very suppressive look. You're going to need that jet to pull out. If you pull out too much of it, you lose the cold air and a storm goes to your west. If you don't pull out enough of it, then you have too much cold air and you wind up with something sliding out to the southeast. So let's jump to Sunday evening, okay? Because this is going to be a pretty relevant time period here, just to see how the jet has changed going into Sunday evening. And all right, so you got it there. So now at this point, that southern trough has actually gotten a bit more vigorous. You can see it right here. This broad, upper low that is formed somewhere in southern Illinois, and this is this is that whole California system. Notice, by the way, in the west, you've got a big ridge that kind of flies up there into the Rockies. There's another deep trough is off the west coast. And I think the most important thing to notice is right in here is another short wave that looks like it's rotating around an upper low that is sitting over the Canadian Maritime. So while the southernmost part of those northwest winds aloft from Saturday do pull up, you still have kind of the southernmost part of that jet stream is still sitting over New York City. So if you've got a surface low that's parked, let's say, right along the Carolina coast, it's going to try to move northward. Then as the flow turns more westerly, the surface low is going to turn out to the east. That is what we're seeing here. Now, what could be different? Well, suppose this short wave that's in southeastern Canada that's rotating around is not as deep. Then you could pull that jet further to the north. Another possibility, too, is that the system here is more vigorous, even more vigorous, where it kind of forces, there's a little shortwave, there's a little ridge here, right there. There's a little shortwave ridge, okay, which pops up. You've got the base of the trough, so you've got this little ridge there. If you've got a more vigorous upper low, that ridge might try and push up a little further northward. So now you've got more a southwest flow that goes up a bit further to the north before it gets pulled out to the east. So that's another thing that could happen in a situation like this. So the question, in my view, is really I've kind of stayed with this idea. I think my primary focus is up here in the north, because this is, I believe, the real driver of this entire event. This whole, this northern jet up here is really ultimately going to be key as to how far north all of this winds up getting. And as you move along, the GFS really kind of suppresses everything going forward. If you go to Tuesday, I'll bring the upper air up for Tuesday, and you can see how it changes from Sunday to Tuesday. Here's your upper air system now, and it's been forced pretty much, even though that northern jet has pulled up, at this point it's too late. It's already done, it's done its work by pushing that low out offshore. And then you've got this other system now coming down into Lake Superior that is basically going to kick that along and push it out straight to the east. Your northern jet is still here. The southern part of those northwest winds are now up in northernmost New England, but it took too long to get there. It would need to do that while the trough is still back out here somewhere. The jet would need to pull up, so there would be time for this to lift up and around. Now, all that being said, I want to take a look at the parallel GFS, because the parallel GFS was a little different in that it pulls the jet up perhaps a bit faster, okay, and leaves an opening for the northern part, the northern fringe of precipitation, to make it up to about New York City and Long Island and coastal New Jersey. And here is the difference, because when we look at Sunday afternoon on the parallel GFS, and by the way, we don't know. You can wishcast all you want. You can go with the model that gives you the outcome that you desire. Let's put it that way. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be right. But the parallel GFS seems to have this view that the northern jet, which is right here, is actually not quite as far south as the GFS, so it gives a little bit more room here, okay, for a surface low to try to move northward before it turns eastward. So there's a little bit more room. There's a short wave that is indicated here from Lake Superior down into the Dakotas that's swinging in, and it seems to be a bit faster than what the operational GFS has. So the upper air pieces on the parallel GFS are a bit different. So this actually would argue that you could probably pull up snow further north into Virginia, into Maryland and Delaware, southernmost Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, coastal New Jersey, and maybe up to New York City and Long Island. It would not get any further north and west of that. I think the margin of error here is such that unless you were to get some sort of wholesale change in the overall look and have something like the Canadian had, which was this phased trough, which is just wrong, that's when you wind up taking a deepening low all the way up the coast, and this is what it did last night and for a couple of runs, but it was all rain at the coast and snow inland. That was wrong. I just don't believe that has a chance of happening. But this I think from the parallel GFS from today, I think certainly offers a possibility of this option, and that's the one thing that I would kind of still hang back and wait to see if the models are going to be adjusting in this fashion. So just to show you on the surface, and I'm going to get close up here so we could take a look at what's going on in the south. Okay, so here's your low that forms out on Wednesday, for tomorrow. That's way offshore. Little arm that comes back to the coast. Cold front for Friday. Here comes your Gulf low. We're looking at the parallel GFS now. And here's where, you get this cold air that starts to break out the snows up in the mountains. I think even the parallel is probably underdone with the extent of it back through Kentucky and Tennessee and northeastern Georgia. The surface low gets much further to the north before it turns. And this is why, again, because of how it has its upper air set up, and it pulls that jet out a bit faster. So you actually have some heavier snows that get into northern Virginia, into Maryland, and even into southernmost Pennsylvania before the low pulls away to the northeast. Notice north and west of New York City, just north and west of Philadelphia, just north and west of Long Island, nothing. It comes to a grinding halt, because then eventually all of that is going to pull away to the east. So if you're a snow lover, I think you're going to really want to root for the parallel GFS. If you're not, you're going to root for the other models. Now, with regards to snow, I'm going to put up the snow map, and if you're on Tropical Tidbits, because I know Scott Burley, you asked me this earlier today, so I tried to kind of write the instructions, but I'll illustrate it for you here how to do it. But if you go to the side menus, you get all these different menus here. You can pick your region, et cetera, et cetera. But if you go to the side menus, click on precip moisture, and then you've got all these different choices. So we can go to the 10-to-1 snowfall map on the parallel GFS, and you can see the kind of big numbers that it prints out. Now look, you can't use this as a forecast. You really can't. It's hilarious that it does these things. These maps, these maps are up there just to kind of give you give a forecaster an idea that based on the precip that's being generated, if it were to be true, and if you translate it to a 10-to-1 ratio, you're going to wind up with snow amounts like this. I would just say to you that you don't need a map to do that. If you know how much liquid precip is going to fall, and you have a good idea how much of that as a percentage is going to be snow, you can do the math and figure out yourself what the model is giving. But you can't look at this and now put up a forecast that says 12 to 18, 18 to 24, because that just, other than the fact that broken clocks are right twice a day, that really is going to be, what your performance will be as a forecaster. These maps don't really work in a practical way in the long range, and we're looking at the total out 6 days. Not working, not going to use it. I would not put out a forecast now of a couple of inches to New York City and Long Island, because this is the parallel GFS doing this, bringing the precip that far north. But at least you can get the idea that this could be a big snow producer for areas down in the interior mid-Atlantic states and into the interior parts of the southeast U.S., producing some heavy snowfall amounts that they normally don't see. And I think that is a possibility, and it's certainly a possibility enough that we mentioned that the risk is there. But as far as these specific amounts are concerned, not something that I would use. And by the way, just to show you the difference between that and the operational, because the operational suppresses here, you got to go down to even just get trace amounts into southern parts of the Delmarva Peninsula, and then you're going into the snows for interior Virginia, going back into eastern Kentucky, southern West Virginia. You get some snows. It doesn't really show all that much in Tennessee, and some of that's probably front end loaded, but it does show significant amounts from the North Carolina border eastward to maybe out to about Raleigh-Durham on the edge of this, if you want to believe it. I don't know if I do, but again, the idea is that you're talking about a good amount of precip that's going to be generated. And when we look at the liquid precip amounts, you can see that the GFS has, quite a bit here, showing a large area of 2 to 3 inches of liquid that are going to fall. And in Texas, you're talking about some places getting 3, 4, or 5 inches of liquid being generated by the model as the low develops and moves out to the northeast. Notice that big gaping hole over New Jersey, Long Island, southern New England, southeastern New York and much of eastern Pennsylvania into Maryland and Delaware, it shows nothing. And right now, because of the fact that the European model pretty much lines up the same way as the GFS, kind of a compromise in terms of the positions between the GFS and the parallel GFS, that you're going to wind up with the same thing. The areas that many of you live in, not going to get very much out of this. So you're going to have to wait to see if the parallel GFS model run is going to be the hero of snow lovers. I haven't been really paying too much attention to how this model has worked until very recently, and since it is going to become the operational model soon, I'm spending a little bit more time on it. This was the 12Z run. We don't have the 18Z run to look at, so unfortunately, I guess there's some kind of problem that they don't always have the model, the parallel GFS running side by side with every model run. Sometimes they do skip. But here's the upper air. I just wanted to kind of quickly go through the long term because I saw it today. I got my first. I'm not going to give away who it was in case you're watching, and I mean this in a loving way, but I got my first "winter is over" message from somebody telling me that the weather pattern is changing. We're going to warm up, and we're not. The winter is pretty much over for the next 100 days. Please stop. Okay, stop. We've been in this pattern here, this very active pattern and colder than average pattern here in the Northeast, pretty much since mid-October. We are bound to get a bit of a break, and I think it's coming because the overall pattern is going to turn fairly progressive. You're going to have a deep trough in the west. You got a lot of troughiness all across the northwest of Canada through Alaska and on westward. So it's going to want to try to put troughs down in the west, and it's going to want to try to bring ridges into the east. Everything does kind of move along, so you are going to see weather systems go by, warm-ups that are going to last for a couple of days. A cold front will come through, another warm-up, another cold front comes through. But if you look at the evolution as we start to get now to the period of December 20th, if you kind of follow the logic here, you start to get blockiness developing according to the parallel GFS across Greenland and into northeastern Canada. So the jet drop, the pattern actually goes back to what we've had, what we've been seeing. It goes back to this as we head toward Christmas. Now, it might be in a rush, not necessarily going to happen, exactly the way the model is. It probably isn't going to happen exactly like this, but it does at least seem to me that this break that we're getting, quote unquote, is not going to last very long. It's just going to be maybe for a week or so, maybe a little bit longer than that, and then then once we get to Christmas and afterward, it's likely that we're going to see this, the pattern go back to what it was, which is this very strong jet stream that's suppressed well to the south and some blockiness up to the north. So, again, I laughed hysterically when I saw that, particularly because the person lives up in northern New England, where they've had kind of like a bonanza for the month of November and the very first days of December. They've gotten a lot of snow. For this time of year, they've gotten quite a bit of snow up in northern New England. And he's trying to tell me that winter is over before it even started. Okay, I know. Snow lovers are like that. They get very sensitive when it comes to this sort of stuff. So that pretty much kind of sums up what we're seeing with the with this storm system. The threat for a significant snowstorm in parts of the South is, I think, real, and certainly real enough that we, put it up front and center. I'm going to wait a couple of more days before I start talking about maybe some specific amounts for that particular area, and of course we're still waiting to see what the outcome is with regards to the final outcome and how far north is precip going to get. And we can go back over the last couple of years that models do like to shift back to the northwest at the last minute a lot for areas of the Northeast. That's happened so many times in the last 3 years. So I certainly wouldn't rule out that possibility. But if it does happen, the impacts are going to probably be confined primarily to coastal areas. Ben McGinnis, if you're on, you know what? Let me just take a look, because I didn't get a chance to look at it today, but I just want to see what the impact is going to be. Hang on. Let me bring that up to the top. Let's just look at Canada. Okay, where did it go? I lost my window. There it is. It's like moving furniture around in a room. It really is. No, not there. Move it there. The light's better this way. Turn the chair to one side. You know, where are you going to put the coffee table? All right, here we go. Let me bring it up to the front. And let's go back. Bring up. We don't have a southeastern Canada view on the parallel, so we're going to have to use the regular GFS for this. But I just want to see what the impact is to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland with these systems running out, including the first one. So let me just let's back this up. And your first low, which is forming off the coast on Wednesday, goes way south, although it does graze parts of Newfoundland with some snow come later Thursday afternoon into Thursday evening. And with regards to the second low, I mean, you got this high, you got with this big high up in Labrador keeping you cold and dry. The second low also is forecast to go way south of you. So it looks like you're going to have to wait till late next week for a significant precip event. And by then, you get that temporary pulling out of the cold air with the trough in the west. So you wind up getting mostly rain out of it. So there you have it. You've got all this cold air and that big high to the north, but the suppressed jet being too far to the south impacts you in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, keeping all the storms, you know, you're not having them come straight up. There's no deep phased trough to bring them up northeastward up the coast and toward Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. So you either get grazed by them or they wind up staying to the south. So it looks like overall it's a cold, dry pattern for the next week or more until you get that trough going into the western part of the United States, and then you start to get into some rain. So some quiet times after that animal storm from last week that you guys got up in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. Hurricane force gusts, heavy rains, heavy snows, a lot of damage, roofs ripped apart. It was one of the stronger storms to hit there in quite some time. All right. I did notice, I just want to acknowledge one other person on the chat. Let me just run back up near the beginning because it was someone who lives right in the heart of the Europeans' big snowfall. And that was, where are you? I wanted to at least acknowledge you. I'm sorry if I can't find you, but you did say that you lived right in the center of all of this, and you hope that you got half of what the European gave you, because it gave you like 2 feet. So if you wound up with half, you would be entirely happy. I think that is a very good approach to your weather, to your expectations. Because if you wind up getting more than that, you'll be even happier. But settle for half of what the European gives you, and you won't be half bad, particularly because of how often you do get big snows in your neck of the woods. It isn't very often. Jess Harden, does this winter storm, the winter storm anomalies, have anything to do with the El Nino Modoki or Modoki? The weak El Nino is going to be a big player here going forward. And in fact, Dr. Judah Cohen did tweet today about seeing a stratospheric event coming in the next, as we get closer to Christmas, that he thinks is going to trigger off a very cold and wild January across the eastern part of the United States. That was what he's predicting. That prediction comes with no guarantees from the management. So just bear that in mind. But he's using the idea of the stratospheric warming events in leading to forecasting colder weather in the eastern part of the United States and possibly even the colder weather over parts of Europe. And we'll see if it comes to be. But the break, as I said, and he, kind of in line with the idea of the break, I'll leave the long term to him. But with the respect to the break, we both agree on the idea that the break is going to be a very short one. The RGEM and the HDRPS, Timothy Veltman, I guess somebody was asking about that. Ryan, yeah, just, click around in there. Just kind of fool around. There's just so much stuff. It's such a great site. Levi Cowan put together, I think, one of the best sites with regards to model access with just so many different options. The problem is actually from the forecaster's side because he sits there and he's tempted to look at every single one of those options. And by the time you've gotten through with all of them, you don't have time to make the forecast time has already passed you by. Reaver, when snow on the coast in the Carolinas is an extremely rare event. It does happen, but it's extremely rare. It's not a question that I would, be able to answer here at this point because we're being so many days away. Because you got to see how the upper trough comes out and where the surface low is, how much cold air is going to be left when all of this plays through. That's all a factor. So save that question for a couple of days, and we'll see. I know some of the models have had this sort of stripe of back edge snow with the coastal low as it moves out, but you got to have an almost perfect scenario with cold air draining into the coast, and it doesn't always happen. Even though you might have the pieces there. Let's just running through. Jill Bettini, welcome aboard. You had snow last year on the same date. You're in Greensboro, North Carolina. Welcome. I love it when people are coming from all over the place to watch my YouTube channel. We had snow. The storm also had ridiculous pre-storm models. If we get 3 to 5, that would be a large storm. I totally agree with you, Jill. That's a great point. That's another reason why you can't look at these snow maps and go literally, inch to inch, because they seldom happen that way. You don't know how much of that precip you're going to lose as rain, how much of that you're going to lose as sleet or freezing rain. You're right. If you wind up with 3 to 5 or 4 to 6, that's a big snowfall for you. That'll shut your city down for a day or 2 or 3. So Jack Ridings, if you get 1.5 inches of liquid and it's all snow, if it's a 10-to-1 ratio with temperatures in the upper 20s to just below freezing, you would get a 10-to-1 ratio would give you about 15 inches. If it's much colder air and the ratios are 15-to-1 or 18-to-1, that's when you have snow, let's say if temperatures are in the low 20s or even the teens. And then you could sometimes get 1 inch of liquid and you wind up with about 20 inches of snow because it's that fluffy, powdery stuff, okay? And I've seen that, even, down here in the coast where I live, we've the winters of 13, 14, 14, 15. We had so many snowstorms during those 2 winters where the temperatures were in the teens through much of the events. Let's see. Dark Legend, the parallel is not as accurate as the GFS. Well, I would argue that the GFS is not as accurate, period, of anything. But why am I using it? As I said before, the parallel GFS is going to be the operational GFS in about a month's time. So I kind of want to get used to it, using it and seeing its quirks. I'm not, using it as Bible. I think I made pretty clear that its solution is a bit different from what the other models were. It's a less suppressed solution, and I was certainly not ready to believe it. But I want to get my feet wet with it. I don't just want to have it thrown on there and suddenly discover that the biases that the GFS had before, perhaps they've corrected it. So it's a way of me and a way of forecasters to kind of get used to using a new tool. Let's go to Zeke UK. How you doing tonight? If you guys are interested in model Weatherbrain672 on YouTube, interviewed 2 gents that developed the models. It was an interesting interview. That's good to know. I'm going to check that out. Weatherbrains 672. I'll check it out, and if it looks good, I'll throw it up on a Facebook post and share it with everybody. It's La Si Bailoe. The H is silent. Gotcha. La Se Baloyi. Oh, wait. I'm trying. I am trying. Okay. Adrian's weather forecast is on board. Welcome. Anomalous Howard. You're saying goodbye. Okay. You've seen enough and had enough. I got you. Will it snow in Marietta, Georgia, an hour from North Georgia? Okay, I'm sorry, Marietta. I got to refresh my mind as to where it is. Hang on one second. Okay. Let's see. Let's get a little bit wider to see where you are in. Oh, so you're not too far from Atlanta. So you're north and west of Atlanta, south and west of Alpharetta. I think you're going to have to be further north than that for snow in Georgia. I think it's going to be, you're going to have to go way up into the northeastern part of the state. Further northeast of the part of the state. I'm trying to find a highway. I can see where Chattanooga is with 75. I mean, the northeastern part. I see where Spartanburg is. So, like, you get closer to the Chattahoochee National Forest. I actually drove through near there just a couple of weeks ago, about a month or so ago, when I was down in Atlanta. Nantahala National Forest. So I guess right up in that area on north and east, up through the western South Carolina, western North Carolina. It might come close to Marietta. We'll see. See the distance here from Marietta. Then you got Calhoun, and then you go into up toward Dalton. So like those areas up there, Blue Ridge. I think that area stands the best chance of seeing frozen. I don't think that the frozen precip will make it all the way down to Atlanta unless a big surprise shows up in some of in the amount of cold air that's available. Wilsonville is in Shelby County in Alabama. Jess Harden. Yeah, you guys, if you give me an idea when you it's like Jess Carter Norton. You're in Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina. So I kind of know. I think you got a shot. You're gonna have to watch. Let's watch the models the next couple of days. I think you got a shot. Now, I know a number of you are starting to ask for your particular geography. Hold it for a couple of days. Let's work out the final idea of how this storm is all going to play out. And then, we can address some, very broad questions in terms of areas. You can't have me zip code forecasting for every spot on Earth, okay? But I know there's a natural tendency because everybody wants to know. Still way too early in the game for any kind of specific questions. Frank Sorolla, do I think cold air damming could be underestimated by models in North Carolina? I actually think it can be. I think it may be. I think the cold air is going to be more important with this, especially if that northern part of the jet stream doesn't get out of the way. If that is telling you right there that the cold air is going to be wedged in more up into the northern part. As you go to the north, you're going to have that cold high up there. It's going to be pinned in. I think that the cold air is going to be a more important factor, particularly in the lower levels of the atmosphere. A Philadelphia station, Michael Azara, is predicting up to 3 inches of snow tomorrow in Atlantic City, Ocean County, New Jersey. I did hear about that. Look, I could not forecast that. So you know what? For the forecaster who forecasted that, if it turns out that he's right, congratulations. It'll be an awesome call. But I honestly, with what we're dealing with, I couldn't put a number like that. This just, it's one of those weird situations that happens here sometimes where you get you get these sort of weak troughs that come in from off the ocean, and sometimes you get these northern troughs that swing around, and you see these small areas that get brief bursts of heavy snow, or sometimes the heavy snow can last for a number of hours, and it'll just be in a rather small geographic area, maybe about 15 or 20 miles wide, and they get hit really hard. Hit very hard, and either side of that, you get nothing. I don't think that, I don't think there's going to be 1 to 3 inches in Atlantic City tomorrow. I would be shocked if there was. And again, if that forecaster, whoever he is, if it winds up being that, then all the more power to you. Ben McInnes reviewing that big storm up in Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. 250,000 people lost power in that storm. Didn't get much in Halifax, mostly in Cape Breton and Northumberland Shore. The power outages were from high voltage lines damaged in Cape Breton. And I did see some awesome and very impressive video from up your way, showing the power line damage, among other things, including roofs being ripped off. It was pretty impressive. That was a 950, mid-50s, 955-ish millibar low. That's almost like a Category 3 hurricane in terms of the pressure. Although the winds, there were some hurricane force gusts. You certainly didn't see gusts up, hurricane Category 3 wise, but still, that is a large. You get with a non-tropical storm, you don't get those extreme winds, but you do get a much larger area of gales and storm force winds that last for a longer period of time. So you wind up with a different type of impact that can be, quite damaging. Under those circumstances, it certainly was. So Bobby Livingsworth, well, let's wait for the hyperbole with this historic stuff. Let's wait till we know what's going to happen. Let them figure that out after it's done. That's kind of how I look at it. Forecast amounts, and when we get close enough, we'll get a little more specific. But with respect to, words like historic, epic, I don't use them here. I just don't. I just don't feel comfortable using those kind of words. I let history make itself, and then I will report that history was made. You know what, Izzy? Look, could you get some snow showers tomorrow? Yeah, it's possible. And happy Hanukkah to you. But I'm not gonna. I don't think it's anything worth anything more than just a cheap thrill. Jack Rudin, you're going to have to get a track further to the north to get snow into Baltimore. I don't think it's impossible, but it's going to depend on how suppressed this system is or isn't. So we'll see. If this is the Deep South, it would be historic without a doubt. PlayStation boss. Well, true. I mean, Deep South storms in the Deep South don't happen too often. So as was pointed out earlier by one of our newer arrivals here on our YouTube channel. 3 to 5, 4 to 6 in Greensboro, for example, for Greensboro at least, is a big deal. All right, time to go. Okay, it's 8:12. We're up to about an hour here. Had a lot of fun as always. So for those of you who have stayed through the whole way, thank you so much for being here. And let me once again remind latecomers and those of you who perhaps have stayed for the whole thing, all the more power to you. I don't know how you do it. But here is, if you're in the New York, New Jersey, northern New Jersey, New York City, Long Island, Southern Connecticut, Lower Hudson Valley, and you have an Android mobile device, you can download my app, my weather app. It's absolutely free. For those of you who would like the app, and perhaps you would like a even bigger weather experience on a daily basis, you can consider signing up for my Patreon platform, which is a subscription platform, and it's just $2 a month, the price of a cup of coffee. You get exclusive posts just for Patreon members, along with all the other website stuff that I post on my website. You can message me at any time, and I will respond to you in a timely manner. And you get exclusive videos and live streams just for Patreon members, which we usually do during the early part of the day, but nobody else sees them except those of you who are on Patreon. And there's the link for that. And one other way to support my channel, which is a rather easy way to do it, is if you happen to shop on Amazon, thank you very much if you go there using my my link to Amazon, because we are a member of the Amazon Services LLC Associates program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for this channel to earn fees by linking to Amazon.com and affiliated sites. And the fees come from Amazon, not from your pocket. So you do your shopping, you do searching, your shopping, and then you get your stuff, and Amazon puts a few cigars in my stocking, and it's a very easy way for you to support my channel. And like I said, it doesn't wind up costing you a thing. Mirtha Gunter, you're in a spot there, Mirtha Gunter, in Western North Carolina. I'm glad you someone said goodbye to you, because I didn't see your chat on there. Sometimes it's hard with them scrolling along, but you're going to probably get some snow out of this, so bear that in mind. Thank you, Jack Rudin. I really appreciate your kind words. Thank you very much. Lord Kate, nice to see you on there. And all of you, thank you very, very much for being on here tonight. We do these live streams usually every night at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Over the weekends, I tend to move them around a little bit depending on football and a few other things. I got stuff to do, you got stuff to do. But when there are storms around, sometimes you even get multiple live streams on those days. So bear that in mind. Yes, Lord Kate, thank you. My channel is growing. I'm really, really thrilled about that. Hard to believe after about 2 years, I'm at 7,300 plus subscribers, and on my way to 10,000, because that's my goal, and I'm really, really excited about that. Joe and Joe show tonight at 9:20 on Facebook, on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Chaffee. My colleague Joe Rayo and I will sit down, we'll take a look at what's going on, maybe have a little bit of the new NAM to look at. Probably not going to have too much new to say, but you never know. Stuff pops up out of the ordinary on that show sometimes. We go in with no script, we just we ad-lib it all the way through, just like I do here. So join us tonight, 9:20 on my Facebook page. Okay, have a great evening, everybody. We'll see you.